These 5 footballers have experienced an extreme amount of trauma at a young age, and we're going to begin by discussing the legendary Kevin De Bruyne, who was abandoned by his foster parents at just 15 years old. The treble winner's talent was already prominent at this point in time, which gave Genk Football Academy a strong incentive to sign the young prospect. However, there was a blatant obvious issue. De Bruyne lived nearly 100 miles from where the club was located, which forced him to relocate to a foster home closer to the club once he signed for them. The year went by and I was doing well in school, doing well in football, no fights, no problems. De Bruyne was incorrect about this statement. De Bruyne states that the last words his foster family ever said to him were, "We'll see you after the break, have a good summer." However, the devastating news his mother broke to him begged to differ. I walked through the door and could see my mum crying, and my mum said the words that probably shaped my entire life. They don't want you to come back because of who you are. They said you were too quiet and they cannot interact with you. A devastated De Bruyne was furious, but he used it as fuel to the fire for his footballing career. Everything is going to be okay, he said. In 2 months I'm going to be in the first team. I am not coming back home a failure. 2 months later, De Bruyne scored 5 goals in the second half of a match after coming off the bench, which skyrocketed his credibility as a player overnight. At around this point in time, his old foster family came to one of the matches he played in, begging for De Bruyne to come stay with them on weekends. De Bruyne denied their offer and responded brutally with, "You threw me in the garbage, now I'm doing well and you want me back?" De Bruyne may have had a perfect ending, but the same can't be said for academy youth player Jeremy Whiston, who had the worst ending to a footballing career possible. After being signed to Manchester City Academy at 13 years old, Jeremy had the brightest of futures ahead of him. In 2018, he had high hopes for a scholarship with the club. However, this was all unfortunately ruined following a knee injury he suffered this same year. Jeremy never fully recovered from this, and in December of 2018, Manchester City decided to release him. At around this time, his former teammates Tommy Doyle, Liam Delap and Cole Palmer were making their first team debuts, which rubbed salt into the ruins of Jeremy's childhood dreams. On October 24th, 2020 at around 9 PM, his mother would find Jeremy's lifeless body in his sister's bedroom. The 18-year-old has since been quoted to have been loved by many. However, Troy Deeney can be viewed as someone who was far from that, regardless if it was actually his fault or not. After being assaulted by his father in his Birmingham Council estate home at 10 years old, his parents would divorce just a year later. Troy would then go on to leave school with no GCSEs to his name, but surprisingly lived a crime-free life up until he joined Watford. Troy states that his father had recently been diagnosed with terminal cancer. The combination of this plus a night out clubbing to celebrate a friend's birthday led to Troy and his crew getting into a fight with a group of university students, which ultimately led Troy being sentenced to 10 months in prison on June 25th, 2012, just 3 days after his father had passed away from cancer. Troy managed to keep a well-maintained relationship with his father for years. The same can't be said for Nadia Nadim, however, who has had the most hectic life of any footballer on this list. Born in Afghanistan on January 2nd, 1988, Nadia experienced a childhood of political turmoil. What made things more difficult was the fact her father was an Afghan general, which made him a high-profile target for the Taliban. This resulted in Nadia's father being executed when she was 11 years old, forcing her family to abandon their home country to seek a better life. They eventually ended up in Denmark, and despite struggling to adjust to an entirely different country, Nadia always had football to fall back on. After years of hard work, she would eventually find herself playing for clubs like PSG and Manchester City. But her most impressive accolade lies elsewhere, as she is a qualified doctor who speaks 9 languages as of January 2022. Gabriel Jesus, on the other hand, is someone who can only speak English and Portuguese. However, some would argue that he is one of the greatest communicators in sign language. In an interview regarding his repetitive goal celebration, Gabriel Jesus claims he does it every single time to hit back at a girlfriend he once had. "My celebration is a message to my ex-girlfriend who didn't answer my calls at Palmeiras, but messaged me when I moved to Manchester City." Gabriel Jesus played for Palmeiras from 2015 to 2017. The Brazilian has continued to impress since he arrived in the Premier League. Well, everyone except for his ex.